About 10 years ago, I was hanging out for a few days in Grapevine, Texas. Grapevine was an old farm and cowboy town before the railroad arrived in 1888, making it a major economic hub for the town and the local farms to move their products across the country. The railroad forever changed it from being a small rural town to a growing city. Today, Grapevine has been absorbed into the greater Dallas-Fort Worth metroplex, and other than its famous Main Street, it has become a city that looks like every other. I had been to Grapevine several times, and this particular day, I was looking for something to occupy a few hours of time before dinner that night. I went looking for a guitar store, but I wanted to find a small mom and pop and try to avoid the inevitable sameness of the big stores like Guitar Center. I found what I was looking for just a few miles up the road from the hotel and stopped into this narrow little storefront with guitars and other string instruments lining one wall and the service counter the other wall. Like every guitar store, there were the usuals, but I noticed this one little guitar with the Gibson name on the headstock. It was Gibson's L-OO acoustic. Introduced in 1931 as a small-bodied blues box to compete with Martin's L-OO guitars, Gibson would continue to build this guitar until 1945 when it was discontinued. Gibson reintroduced it sometime in the mid to late 1990s, and here was one hanging on this dealer's wall. I pulled it down, sat with it, played it a bit, and was instantly smitten. It was not loud or booming like a big acoustic, but had this tiny, close-to-the-gut sound that seemed to come from that time of old blues and Saturday night porch players. It wasn't pretentious, just satisfying to play and easy to listen to. I liked this guitar, but it wasn't cheap, and I was 2 flights and a time zone from home. I took the memory and the idea of this little guitar home with me and thought about it for weeks. I had been building solid-body guitars for years at this point. I understood how to make them and how to make them work. But I had never built an acoustic. I was learning and mentoring under a very well-known acoustic builder here in my hometown, trying to close that gap. At the time, I was currently building an archtop. It was almost done, but I was so smitten by this little L-OO that I asked Al, my teacher, if he had the molds and dimensions to help me build one. He did, and that very day I put the archtop, unfinished, on the rack and began to build my own version of this little Gibson L-OO blues guitar. Let me share the story of that build. Hello everybody, my name is Bill and this is the channel Canvas and Chords. And this is that guitar. It's almost done. It's playable. We still have some work to do. We have to do the intonation. The nut is completed. I still need to intonate the bridge. All that's coming up in the future. So before I play you part 1 of this series, I want to welcome you here. If it's your first time here, it is a new channel. I just created it. Let's talk about how we got started building this little L-OO acoustic guitar. I don't think I have ever met a woodworker who isn't also a wood hoarder. We find it, we admire it, we buy it, or we salvage it. A straight grain piece of wood has its purpose, and a highly figured piece has both purpose and emotion. We love wood. I love wood. But I also love salvage wood. Vintage wood that has survived or outlived its original use, sometimes by decades or maybe even centuries. When I can, and when it makes sense to, I want to repurpose it. And making guitars out of it just seems a fitting revenge for the wood getting even with those who would have remanded it to the junk pile. For example, the laminate on the walnut telly I built was salvage wood from blanks used in the production of gun stocks. It was bound for the burn pile or fireplace. The trim rings for the pickups on that guitar were made from a chunk of salvaged firewood. The snake guitar was made from rafters that I salvaged from an old A&P grocery store that was torn down to make way for a new bank. And the laminate for the mill guitar, it came from 120-year-old maple floorboards, salvaged from a repurposed and remodeled centuries-old woolen mill. This L-OO blues guitar didn't escape my obsession either. I took the top from the soundboard of a century-old upright piano that had deteriorated beyond any reasonable effort to restore it. I dismantled the piano and saved the entire soundboard. There are at least 2 more guitar tops in what remains. The soundboard for the piano was made from Douglas fir. The wood was old, tight-grained, and straight. Straight is good for an acoustic guitar top. Using a template for the finished top, I searched around the soundboard looking for the best grain, figure, and possible book match. With that decision made, it was time to start the woodworking. First was thinning down the boards to a beginning thickness using a hand plane. Once the thicknessing was done, we had to shoot the edges to get as close and perfect a fit as possible for the glue-up. It needed to look seamless, like a single board when done. You can see how that process is done in one of my earlier videos on the Telecaster build. With all the milling done, it was time to glue up the pieces. We used traditional hide glue for this. In case you didn't pick it up, there are 4 pieces of Doug fir that make up the top of this little guitar. Lots of bracing and lots of very big rubber bands held this all together until the glue dried. With the glue set up, it was time to mark out the top and bandsaw the excess to make it look like a guitar.